we're going to jump into the second chapter of Kiddushin. That's the Tractate of Betrothal. And as we jump into the second chapter, we get right into the we get right in the thick of it. And in particular, we get into this tension that we've already mentioned. Is the betrothal a legal act, or is it, so to speak, an emotional act? And we'll see this play out in a little bit of a tussle between the Mishnah and the Gemara, between the if you like, the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and the commentary or the discussion about it added by Rabbi Yehuda and Rav in Babylon. But let's jump into the Mishnah. Ish makadesh bo uvi shlucho. A man can betroth in person or through his agent. So he's going to send a document, or he's going to send a ring, or he's going to send some money. He's going to say, you are betrothed to me. And he doesn't need to show up. He doesn't need to show up. He can send his agent because it's a legal transaction. And this is parallel to all the material that we've learned in Gittin about divorce. A man can send a divorce document via an agent. He doesn't need to send it in person. And it works both ways. A woman can be betrothed in person or via her agent. And we can imagine, by the way, in times gone by, if intercity travel was difficult and dangerous, there might have been good reasons. There might have been good reasons to appoint an agent to carry out these transactions. And the Mishnah continues, and a man can give his daughter in betrothal when she's a na'ara. A na'ara is an adolescent, is a 12 to 12 and a half year old. So she's kind of on the border of full legal personality. And again, in person or via his agent. And let's just take a step out and let's just have a quick look. Let's just take a look out of the Gemara, because we'll see that the Gemara doesn't necessarily agree. And it begins by saying, quoting Rav Yosef, mitzvah bo yoter mi bishlucho. It's better to do it in person. So we're going to just tip into the emotional side, like the story of Rav Safra who'd singe the head and Rava who'd salt the fish. These are preparations for Shabbat. They do these things themselves, even though they had servants who could do them for them. They prepare the food for Shabbat. But then the Gemara turns the heat up. Iked Amri Bahai Surah. There are some who say it is forbidden. Well, the Gemara here is actually turning the Mishnah on his head. The Mishnah says a man can betroth via an agent. And the Gemara comes along and says, no. Some people say it's absolutely forbidden to do that. Key to Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, because Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Asur la'adam she'ikadesh et ha'isha ad she'yirena. It's forbidden. It is forbidden for a man to betroth a woman until he sees her. And of course, that means until she sees him, by the way. And because he has to give, but she has to accept. There is mutuality in this act. She has to accept. It's forbidden until he sees her, although we're going to now come in with a very gendered and male-centric view of the world. Shema yirev hadavar mugune v'hit ganeh alav. Maybe v'tit ganeh alav. Maybe he'll see something repulsive and she'll be repulsive to him. V'rachmana amar, and the Torah says, ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And of course, this word re'ah, it echoes right the way through Shir HaShirim, through Song of Songs. Ra'aya means my love, just as much as it means my neighbor. I shall love my lover. You have to love your lover. You can't just get engaged. It's not a legal act, or it's not purely a legal act. And so that's the first challenge which the Gemara brings to this Mishnah. And then it points out, by the way, Aval Baha, in this case, and now we're going to talk about the second case, a woman appointing an agent. And then we're going to throttle back a little bit. Aval isura leitba. In the case of a woman appointing an agent, there's no prohibition. And now we're going to quote Reish Lakish, Kida Reish Lakish, who says, Tal lemeitav tandu. It's better to sit as a couple, milemeitav armalu, than to live as a widow. And that's again, maybe modern single women might not agree with this statement, but that certainly reflects the position of women in the time of Reish Lakish. And he's saying, look, we're not going to forbid a woman to send an agent to pick up Kiddushin on her behalf because, gosh, women, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for a woman to be single. And the Gemara makes a similar comment about a man betrothing his daughter when she's an adolescent. And the Gemara again says, Kshinara, in Kshikatana, lot, when she's an adolescent. Yes, when she's a minor, no. And we're going to now quote Rav and Rav Yehuda again. Asur adam shekadeshet bitok shikatana. It's absolutely forbidden for a person to betroth his daughter when she's a minor until she grows up. Ad shetigdal ve Tomar bifloni ani rotsa, until she grows up and says, I want so and so. And Tosafot have a discussion about the fact that in medieval times people were doing this. And, there's war and there's disturbance and there's an anxiety that if you don't betroth your daughter when she's young, you may not be around to betroth her when she's old. But so Tosafot, Tosafot admit that they're doing it, but the Gemara doesn't like it. This is not just a legal act. It's an emotional act, and they have to be suited. Having said that, the Mishnah then goes back straight into legality. We've said we can be betrothed with a peruta, which is basically like saying with a dime. It's the smallest possible amount of money. So the Mishnah goes on to say how Omer Isha Kachili be Tumara zo. Be betrothed to me with this date. And then maybe a date isn't, you get a sense as to how the cost of a date or the cost of a peruta, because maybe one date is not enough. So he says, with this date, and then hikachili v'zo, and then be betrothed to me with this, and then hikachili v'zo. He says this 3 times. Be betrothed to me with this date, and with this one, and with this one. Ve'im yesh ba'achat mehem shavei peruta. If one of those dates is worth a peruta, mukudeshet, he's betrothed, because he said it 3 times with regard to 3 different dates. So one of them has to be worth a peruta. Ve'im lav einam mukudeshet. If that's not the case, if one of them is not worth a peruta, she's not betrothed. Now, if he says with this and with this and with this, vazo uvazo uvazo, in other words, he's betrothing her with 3 dates. Im yesh b'chulam shavei pruta mukudeshet. If all of them are worth a pruta, if all of them are worth a peruta, she's mukudeshet, she's engaged. I'm assuming she accepts, by the way. She has to accept. Haita ochelet rishona. Maybe she eats them one by one. Gosh, these are great dates. But again, we get a sense as to the value of a date, but also to the fact that, food is, you could not just go out of the supermarket and get food in those times. So he's giving her these dates and she's eating them. She's eating them one by one. She's not mukudeshet, she's not betrothed. You might think, by the way, that the act of taking the date and eating it is an acceptance of the Kiddushin. But the Mishnah says, she's not betrothed until one of them is worth a pruta. Because, of course, he might give her 3 dates, but the 3 dates have to exist together. The 3 dates have to exist together and to be worth more than a pruta. If they're being continuously eaten as they're being handed over, then it doesn't work. She's not betrothed, she's not Pekudeshet, he has to do something different.